Hey everyone. Topic: North Korea. I wanted to do another video to follow up on the video I did a couple of days ago, and that video was entitled Why the United States Will Not Preemptively Strike North Korea. In that video, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, I will provide a link in the description. If you have not watched that video, I highly recommend that you do, because this video is kind of a follow-up to that. But basically, in a nutshell, in that video, I basically make the argument that we are not going to launch a preemptive strike against North Korea. And I do say that probably the only thing that we can hope for there is to get rid of Kim Jong-un is if there is a coup from within the inside. People in North Korea, people around Kim Jong-un are going to have to come together and decide that he has to go, and they do a coup. I think the possibility of that happening is unfortunately not very good. That's the Kims have been in power for a long time. They've got a system in place that's almost impenetrable. There have been coups attempted before, and they never work. Now, just as we know that when Hitler was in power, there had been multiple, we know of at least 3 for sure, attempts at taking out Hitler, and they were never successful. So these leaders like that, you give them years and years and years, especially with the Kim family, they come up with a way to make sure that these coups cannot be carried out. So it's a very long shot that you're going to actually get that to happen. So what are our options now moving forward? Accepting, if you will, my premise that we will not launch a preemptive strike in North Korea. Okay, so that means that in 5 to 10 years, we're facing a situation where Kim Jong-un will have an ICBM, a nuclear-tipped ICBM, that can reach the United States. He can already reach, obviously, South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, and Australia, as well as pretty much any place in the South Pacific there. So anyway, he already has that capability, but as far as from the American perspective, he does not have the capability to hit us now, as far as we know. And we don't know what his submarine technology is, but we know it's pretty good. We know they have launched rockets from submarines. Whether or not they can miniaturize a nuke anytime in the next couple of years, probably doubt that. But if you're talking 5 to 10 years, and we are looking at a long-term strategy here, then that is certainly something you have to consider he might be able to do. So what would be our options at this point? Well, obviously the first option that we're looking at is what we're already doing, which is to put tremendous pressure on China, to have them put a lot of pressure on Kim Jong-un in the hopes that things become so bad that the people around Kim Jong-un decide to carry out a coup. Now, as I've mentioned, I think that the likelihood of that is very low. It's possible, but I would say it has a very low probability of that occurring anytime soon. So what's our next option? Well, of course, we could always go to the false flag. False flags are carried out practically every day by governments and intelligence agencies all the way around the world. There's probably no government in the world that doesn't do false flags. In the United States, and the Israelis and the Brits, other European countries, the Russians, all carry out false flags on a regular basis. So, what about the false flag? Well, if we were to do a false flag, and in case you don't know what I'm talking about with a false flag, we're eventually talking about what what you would typically call a frame-up. You carry out some sort of an action and you blame it on someone else, giving you the reason to attack them. Such as, we could do something like sink a Japanese fishing vessel in Japanese territorial waters and blame it on Kim Jong-un and say, okay, well, he sunk this Japanese vessel, so we're going to attack Kim Jong-un. Well, probably that would not be a measured response and probably wouldn't be viewed by the rest of the world as a very much of a measured response. Yeah, you can sink the Japanese vessel and blame it on Kim Jong-un, but doubtful if you would have very many people who would think that launching a full-scale war on North Korea based on the fact that he sunk this Japanese fishing vessel probably would not be viewed as a measurable response. So that's probably not going to be good enough. You would probably have to do something like drop a couple of rockets into Seoul, which have nerve gas on them. That would certainly be the use of a weapon of mass destruction. It would kill hundreds, if not a few thousand people, and you could therefore justify a full invasion or full attack on North Korea. but you still have the problem that I mentioned in the previous video, which is in the process, you're not going to be able to take out all of North Korea's military assets in a couple of hours. It's going to take you at least 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks of bombing day and night around the clock, in which time he's going to get off a lot of missiles into South Korea, possibly Japan as well. He may even get one of his atom bombs. He's got 15 to 20, we believe. He might even get an atom bomb. And so, of course, this is not really a very good option. Even if we were successful in carrying out the false flag, we still come back to the same problem, which is that he's going to, in a conflict, he's going to be able to kill a lot of people in South Korea and Japan and possibly Australia and other places as well. So this is probably not an option that we can take. Now, we could also try to take advantage of the fact that he's paranoid, and for good reason. If you're the North Koreans, you have very good reason to be paranoid. I'll be talking about that in another video, but let's just go with that for just a moment. What we could do is we could send another aircraft carrier over there to get 2 or 3 aircraft carrier groups. We could put a bunch of missile systems into Japan and South Korea. We could raise our level of rhetoric, doing the good cop, bad cop routine, which we're doing now anyway. We could really raise the amount of activity that we have going on both in propaganda and with military assets, and try to take advantage of his paranoia to lead him to believe that we are getting ready to attack him, in which case he would try to act first by launching on us, in which case he would then provide us with the casus belli to go ahead and launch a full-scale war. Once again, this takes us back to the same exact problem, which is you, in the process of a full-scale war with North Korea, yes, we're going to defeat him, but it ain't going to happen in a couple hours or even a couple of days. It's going to take several weeks, even if we drop everything we got on him, short of a full-scale nuclear deal, which I just don't think that we would have the support of the international community to go in there and drop nukes, unless he used nukes. Which I doubt he would initially. I think that's a last case scenario. I think he would launch. He's got 15,000 ballistic missiles that can kill a hell of a lot of people in Japan and South Korea. He doesn't need to use the nuke unless it's used against him or unless he believes it's going to be used against him. So we could do the pressure cooker and try to let his paranoia cause him to act first, which would then give us the reason to hit him. But again, I just don't think we'll exercise that option, and I don't think these Japanese or the South Koreans or even the Chinese or the Russians would go along with that. Clearly, they do not want a full-scale war on the Korean Peninsula. None of those countries want that. So that would probably not be an option for us. So what's our other options? Well, the next option, because those are pretty much all the offensive options that we have available to us, which I don't think we can do. So then what we have to do is go to the defensive options, which would be, first of all, we could place our anti-missile systems into South Korea, the THAAD missile systems and the Iron Dome or whatever systems that we want to put in there that could knock out or defeat incoming missiles. You'll get some of them, but you won't get them all. We could put those in South Korea. We could put them in Japan, Australia, or anywhere else, anyone else who felt threatened by Kim Jong-un. And as he continues to develop his missiles and his rockets and his miniaturizing his nukes, this is probably an option that some of these countries would consider. The only problem you have is that it's not politically popular. In fact, I think we just put some THAAD missiles into South Korea, and there are various people in South Korea, politicians and citizens alike, who see this as upping the ante, and they are not supporting it. So you will receive political pushback. Japan is another situation where they are kind of reaching the point where we've always provided their defense for them, but I think that they are now starting to talk about wanting to develop their own military, their own anti-missile systems. They might even want to try to get a nuke, which is what we want to try to prevent. We want to try to prevent South Korea from, or Japan or Australia from saying, hey, we now have an enemy, Kim Jong-un, who's threatening us with nuclear weapons. Eventually he will be able to deliver them, and so we need to have our own nuclear weapons as a deterrent. But I think that we're going to try to talk them out of that, and I think that we're going to try to talk them into, rather than do that, let us put some anti-missile systems that can knock those missiles down. That's probably the first defensive measure that we can take, and again, it will depend on whether or not those countries want those systems there. So that's probably the most realistic option that we can actually do, and probably will do, if at all possible, if it's politically possible. And of course, the next option for us in the United States is that at this point we don't think that he's got an ICBM with a miniaturized nuclear weapon to hit us. But in 5 to 10 years, he will have. So the option for us is, of course, to continue to develop much better technology than he has. We already have much better technology than he has. We're way, way ahead of Kim Jong-un. We're about 30 to 40 years ahead of him in technology. So probably our most realistic option is to continue to develop our technologies for anti-missile systems, anti-missile defense. We are working with things like laser weapons, which we are testing, which we actually have. They're actually on some of our ships. And what these weapons do is they focus a laser beam, a multicolored laser beam, onto a rocket while it's sitting on its pad or while it's been launched and is in the air. And it focuses this laser beam on the rocket. It takes about anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute or so of focusing this laser beam onto a missile, and then it just blows it up. We also have the cyber warfare technology that we might be able to take over its command and control of the missile and abort the missile through a cyber attack. So that's probably the options that we have. They're defensive options. It's probably the most realistic and best options we do have. And so I think that that is really the only solution to the long-term problem with Kim Jong-un, the demonic Teletubby, and the Hermit Kingdom of North Korea. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. You all have a good day. Goodbye.